The more that I work to bring the offline population online, the more that I become convinced that we ourselves must move offline. I started coming to this realization on just another night in Kabul. It's Thursday, the start of the Afghan weekend. I'm at my good friend Fareed's house. We're sitting in the living room after dinner. He's recently come back from Farah province in western Afghanistan. He pulls out his smartphone and says to me, "I've got to show you something." I lean in. His kids crowd around as well. And it's a familiar scene in Kabul. Time and again, I find myself sitting in front of the small screen of a mobile phone or another device, sharing photos and videos of my life and seeing the ones that my Afghan hosts have as well. Now, staring at a phone can be a deeply social encounter. We're doing it not to avoid interacting with each other, but to further our sense of connection. In a society like Afghanistan, with a very clear delineation between public and private space, these socially shared media are a key way for Afghans to explore and interact with the outside world. Now, to this video that he's showing us. It's of these rural Afghan men that are doing these really slapstick antics. They're vaulting. They're vaulting and doing handstands over oil drums. They're running headfirst into what looks like a pile of sand. They're clearly having a very good time. And I'm watching this video and I'm laughing very hard. And I'm thinking, this deserves its 5 minutes of internet fame. But the videos, they come from Farah province in the far west, which is rural, lacks infrastructure, and has persisting security challenges. It's not the type of place where access to internet is a high priority. And so I asked my friend Fareed, where did you get these? He's super chill about it. A friend gave it to me. I push him for more details. But where did he get it? Did you download it? Is it on YouTube? And in response, he gives me what becomes a familiar look. "Eileen, you silly foreigner." And he proceeds to explain to me how little I, the supposed social media expert, know of the internet in Afghanistan. In 2002, Afghanistan had 1 telephone connection per 1,000 people. Only 1,000 people had access to the internet, and only 15,000 had mobile phones. Fast forward to 2015, in which that number has now jumped to 4 to 5 million on the internet, 2 million people online, and up to 90% of the population now have mobile phone access. Afghans are very proud of all of this progress, and they've taken to the internet for everything from organizing protests on Facebook to holding their government accountable for the campaign promises, to expressing solidarity and grief. This was a profile picture that was changed. This girl was murdered, beheaded with 6 others in her family. But Afghans also come together to share funny jokes and humor. And as you can see from this brilliant meme from the Afghan presidential election season, the cat meme is alive and well in Afghanistan. In other words, Afghans are coming together to use the internet in much the same way that we do. And in my time in Afghanistan, I've seen firsthand how much progress has been made. But what has impressed me the most during this time is not the official indicators of progress. It's how, despite, in some cases, the lack of progress, in this case, connection to the internet, how people are still finding ways to access information and share it, both online and off. So back to this video. Fareed explains it to me. So my friend shared it to me offline, using Bluetooth. And he got it from another friend, using Bluetooth. You know, I'm not sure if it's on the internet at all. Maybe we should Google it. So, it's just another night in Kabul, Afghanistan. And yet, my mind is turning. I find myself rethinking everything I believed about the internet in Afghanistan, but also about technology for development and about the nature of innovation. Because I've been working for years to bridge the so-called online-offline divide. And here it was, the key that I had been missing all this time, just laid out casually before me. And it was this, that below the wires and tubes that make up the visible internet, there's this whole other invisible mobile social network that we do not see. Now, I found myself asking, why was it that we were so focused? Why was it that we were so focused on bringing the offline population of an entire country online, changing everything about the way that they communicate? Because if we were so interested in communicating with the people that are offline, that are hard to reach, why wouldn't we take a step and meet them in the middle and go just a little bit offline ourselves? So what I came to call the invisible mobile social network is also known as the Sneakernet. The Sneakernet allows for the offline transfer of content electronically via hard drives, flash disks, USB, Bluetooth. And in Afghanistan, the Sneakernet looks like this. First, you have the micro-entrepreneurs. Sometimes they sit in mobile phone shops, sometimes they're literally on the sides of the roads. And from them, you can get anything you can imagine. For as little as 20 AFs, you can get a cell phone backdrop, a ringtone, the latest episode of Game of Thrones, propaganda from the Taliban. So you go to one of these guys and you pay for the content and you download it and transfer it onto your phone. And from there, you can share it to your wider network. The easiest way to do so is to browse on that mobile phone with whoever it is that you want to share it with, as Fareed and I were doing with that grainy home video. And then, if that person's really interested in this content, he can make the transfer and get that content for himself using Bluetooth or USB cables or SD cards or flash drives, any of these things. What's fascinating is that all of this is happening completely offline. But the great thing about the Sneakernet is that chances are someone on that Sneakernet is also connected to the internet. And suddenly you have this content that's been spreading like wildfire offline, making the hop back onto the visible internet. And that bridges the online and offline divide. We tend to think of internet access as black and white. Either you're online or you're off. But this binary model of internet doesn't actually account for how the majority of the world's population connects. In fact, 4.2 billion people around the world do not have internet connections. That's 60% of the world's population. But on the other hand, 7.1 billion people around the world do have mobile phone connections, out of a total world population of 7.4 billion. And the only thing that you need to access the Sneakernet, the invisible mobile social network, is a mobile phone. And so it's no stretch to say that virtually everyone is on the Sneakernet. So some examples include the few smartphone owners in North Korea that can't get online to an online app store, but can physically go to a carefully controlled, specially designated physical app storefront. To China and Iran, where activists use the Sneakernet to bypass censorship. To Saudi Arabia, where young people use the Bluetooth Discover function as a kind of offline version of online dating. To North America and Europe, where it's still easier for us to transfer large files on a hard drive than on the cloud. What all of these examples speak to is that the lack of access to the internet, or the choice not to use it, is not the same as a lack of access to information. And further, it speaks to the gray space between online and offline, where most of us work, live, and communicate. But let's go back to a moment to Afghanistan, where one group in particular is doing a very good job of using the Sneakernet. And that is the Taliban. The Taliban in Afghanistan have their content in all of the mobile phone kiosks across the country. So for the same price as a Bollywood pop song, you can also download or buy a grainy home video of a public stoning, of a military vehicle blowing up, of a ringtone extolling the virtues of suicide bombing. At one point, the Taliban media industrial arm was so prolific that they had 40 singers on payroll that produced the equivalent of a 12-song album every month. We know all of this, and yet we are still ignoring the Sneakernet. And that problem is only becoming more dire because it's not just the Taliban that are using the Sneakernet, it's also violent extremist groups like the Islamic State. And by failing to counter their messaging on the largest social network in the world, and also the one that is the most personalized, we're not just losing, we're giving up without a fight. Luckily, it doesn't actually take that much for us to win. But what it does take is a shift in perspective. We need to start seeing innovation as more than just the latest gadget, the most advanced algorithm. Innovation is also about how we adapt the internet, technology, Sneakernet, for more than just how we in the West understand it. At the very least, we can think of what Winston Churchill once said. Do not let spacious plans for a new world divert your energies from saving what's left of the old. I would like to modify that just a little bit for the digital age and the deeper future. Do not let spacious visions for a new world divert your ability to see the innovations of the old. Thank you.